So, everybody who's joined us, welcome to the B.Draddy happy hour on Fridays. We've got my brother Gregory here with us today, and we thought it might be fun to kind of have it as open questions. So, for all you that are out there, if you want to drop in a question, there should be a question mark at the bottom of the screen. You can type that in. It should be right next to the comment part of the screen. You can just type that in, and then myself and Gregory will field the questions. Doesn't look like he sees them coming, so I'm going to have to be the one to read them. So
I'm going to think on the fly, Billy.
How would you say?
I said I'm going to answer them on the fly.
Okay, all right. Greg, all we would like is your honesty.
Oh, good. That's all I can give you.
Just so all you know, he used to live right across the street from me here in Rye, and he's now down in North Carolina. So, and I don't get to see him as often as I used to. So this will be fun. So we got 6 questions teed up for us right now, Greg. So
okay.
Let me see here. Oh wow. All right, so the first one is from Ryan Draddy, who already probably knows the answer to this, and he wants to know who's the better golfer.
Between me and Ryan? Clearly
yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
I've got most 12-year-olds I can beat, but not all of them. No, what I would say is very clearly Billy is the better golfer.
And I'll say very clearly, Gregory's the better athlete by far.
Yeah. I would say that I used to tell people that you and I combined were the perfect athlete. You were great at the things that were done when standing still, and I was very good at the things when moving. So you were clearly the better golfer, but I was the most improved golfer.
For you to do that.
The thing that bummed me out was I lost the connection while you were paying me a compliment. So you want to do it again?
Well, it was kind of
backhand.
It's kind of like a typical Draddy compliment, a little backhanded. One of the questions was who's the bigger mama's boy, and considering you had a picture of your mother in the background of the picture, I declared you the bigger mama's boy.
Well, yeah, and the other part of it is I needed to do that to regain my footing because you sent out such a nice note about mom in your B.Draddy. It was beautiful prose, and each of your 5 English teachers in high school would be proud of you for that.
Oh wow, that was by mistake then. The feelings were real, but if it was the correct grammar, that was purely by coincidence. So there's a question here from a guy named Steve Beaumont.
Oh, geez.
He wants to know who was the king of backyard hoops at the Draddy household.
Well, I'd like to say I was the king of the hoops in the backyard, but what happened with Billy in sports is as soon as I got better at him at any of them, he changed the game. And so as soon as I could beat him in one-on-one in basketball, he'd only play me in horse because he was a better shooter than me. And the other part, if you remember, Billy, we fought almost every day in the backyard, and as soon as I could beat you, the fights ended.
Yeah, as soon as my side of that story is as soon as there was a tie, so I declared our last fight a tie. I'll give you the win at this point, 30 years later.
Well, maybe one of your roommates from college is on this, and he could offer up an opinion on that one.
Yeah.
If they weren't in a blackout.
I remember it was kind of like a fight. It's from Family Guy. You ever see Family Guy get in a fight, and it goes from room to room? And
yeah.
I remember the fight being in the hallway, in the bathroom, in the dorm room. Is that right?
That's how I remember it. I was underage. You weren't, so I remember it better than you do at that point.
Yeah.
Those are still your drinking days, I think.
Yeah, that was freshman year of college, so it would have been, yeah. Yeah. I would say that we fought on average every day, but certainly most days there were at least 2 fights. right?
Yeah. And the only thing our mother would say was get in the backyard, pick in the backyard.
Yeah. And for a long time, we'd have a fight right before we went to bed. We'd have the sneak attack.
I forgot about that.
So for those that don't know, the lights would go out every night. My mom would say, go right to bed, and everything like that. And if one of us couldn't get to sleep, we'd sneak into the other one's bed and give them a sneak attack and fight till we were both so tired to fall asleep. But
hey, the only
let's get some of the questions here.
Yeah.
Okay, so who is more competitive?
You want me to answer?
Yeah, sure.
I'd say in our youth, I would say we were equally competitive. We were both probably what I would consider to be competitive to a fault. But I would say my competitiveness would probably come undone more often than yours would. Like you would keep it in the rails, and I had I really had two speeds, stand still and rage. So
yeah,
probably I'd say in our youth we were equal, but I think over time you're probably more competitive than I am now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty equal.
Yeah.
We know where we get it from. We both get it from my father, who's probably the most competitive person on the planet. When we were when we were in high school, we would at night we'd go out and play hoops in our backyard, and once in a while my dad would join us. And I think we were playing. Were we playing with Stephen Bovert? And we might have been playing with Stephen Bovert that night.
Yeah.
And we were playing 2-on-2. And I would guess by what happened, it was you and Stephen versus me and Dad. And my dad literally threw like a Bill Lane beer elbow right at your face when he was trying to box you out or something like that. And it was he probably to this day would say that he didn't foul you. But I remember it like it was more Bill Lambier than B.Draddy, that's for sure.
That's true.
So let me see what we got here. Let me see if I can scroll down. We got any? Here, Shane Dwyer would like to know if you're playing golf righty or lefty these days.
Oh, Shane, young cousin Shane. The answer to that question is I'm actually a hybrid now. My game has fully evolved to the point where I golf righty until I get to 100 yards, and then I switch over and I play lefty from 100 in. And I'd say it's less about me showcasing my skill and more about me being a head case and having some long-term injuries that I had to overcome in my shoulder. But I finally reached the hybrid.
Well, that's another one of my Mike Gilmore stories, the pro at Wingfoot. So he had continued to work with Greg on his golf game and had made real improvements, but all of the mistakes that Greg was making were because he couldn't he couldn't cover the ball with his right shoulder. He just couldn't turn the shoulder over, so he was casting his arms, and all the mistakes were as a result of that bad shoulder. And so Mike was kind of like, I don't know what we're going to do about this. Unless there's something we can do about the shoulder, you're going to continue to have these problems. And you said to Mike, well, Mike, I could play righty. And he's like, play righty? Shut up. And you're like, no, I'm kind of ambidextrous. And so Mike hands you his whatever iron, a 7-iron, and you take your first swing righty, and you hit it flush, right? You hit it good?
Yeah. I had two swings, and he said, we're done.
Yeah, he goes, they're going to talk about us.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, he said, are you ready? Because this is a bold move. And I said, yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah. So one of the questions here is, did you know that Billy was going to be in the clothing business? Did you see that from day one?
Yeah, that's a clearly a yes answer, and it's kind of a nuanced answer. But Billy, from the youngest age, was very interested in the clothing business, and it the way it played out, as far as I can recall, I would probably his earliest days I was a little too young. I am a few years younger than Billy, but when he was in grammar school, probably in sixth grade, our father was in the clothing business, as your followers know, and he had a sample table down in the basement, which at one point was a ping pong table and became a sample table. So Billy, when he starting in sixth grade, he would leave for school and he would go downstairs and he would take a shirt, one of my dad's sample shirts, and put it on and wear it to school. And so he, starting in sixth grade, was the most fashionable guy in the school, and he'd come home, sneak in through the basement, fold up the shirt and put it back. And a couple things is that, not only did he do it, is that he did it with style. And I think Billy's sense of style is genetic. He had it at birth, and he and I were born into the same household, and we couldn't be more different. The other side of that story is I tried that trick once, and I went downstairs, put on a shirt, wore it to school, slid into home plate head first, came back with, dirt and ketchup on it, tried to fold it, and Billy knows how good I am at folding, and the experiment ended then, because my dad's like, what the hell's going on here with these shirts?
Yeah.
So I'd say it was right from the beginning, but the genetic part of it, I think, it's really important, because you've always been ahead of where style is, and that's the thing that's been most impressive to me. But Billy had a beard 2 years before anybody else had a beard. He had long hair before everybody else was growing long hair. He wore cotton when everybody else was wearing other types of shirts. So he's never relied on others to dictate his sense of style. And so what I've learned over time is to just about a year after Billy's wearing something, I'll start to wear it. So that's the answer.
Well, I think it's definitely genetic, because we have several family members that are in the clothing business, and I can say with absolute certainty that each of us have children that I would take today and put them to work, and they would do, without any training or anything like that, they would do an incredible job. And that's Siobhan and Liam. And I see a little bit of it in the others, but with them, it literally was from before they could even assert their own style. They had their own style, And,
it's so true.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true as well. I just went on about your sense of style, and your lovely, beautiful wife Nina's got impeccable style herself, and you still have Sean. Your second born, my godson. He's me. He's long, he's lanky, and I like to call him a beautiful mess. That's but that I only say it because I'm describing myself. So born under the same household, not everybody gets the same genetic gifts.
Yeah, no, you two are very similar in that way, that that even when you're dressed up, you're kind of although you've certainly gotten better as you've gotten older, but at the same ages, both of you, when you were dressed up, you were still quite the mess. That's for sure.
Yeah.
One of the other questions was, who got away with more as teenagers?
Well, I would say you probably got away with more, but you also did more. You blazed a trail. So if I probably had more room to get away with stuff than I realized, but Billy set the standard as the oldest child, and by the time me being the third child rolled through, maybe the restrictions were a little bit more lax. So you pushed the envelope on everything, but the thing is, you did it with a smile on your face, and even when you were getting in trouble in school, the teachers loved you so much that, like he's so nice. He's always smiling. He doesn't do the work, but he's smiling, and I mean, I found my share of trouble too, but I think you probably, I don't wear it well. You're probably a little bit better at putting your bullshitting or your poker face, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I also, every single one of my friends was the youngest in their family, and I was the oldest in my family. So all of them had pretty much free passes. And as you know, our parents they weren't really interested in how other people were parenting their kids. They had their own belief on it, and and God knows it kept me out of a lot of trouble, a lot more trouble than I could have gotten into, for sure. But being the first of that with them, I certainly had the handcuffs on me for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, our mother was McGruff, the crime dog, before even she could. Not that we did any of this, but she could sniff alcohol like across a room. So we didn't get away with as much as maybe we probably would have if under a different household, but we're probably both better for it now. I think our mother was what I would say is she expected us to know the difference between right and wrong, and she held us to that standard, but she'd still let us make the mistakes first, so there was always that choice. So if you're gonna go out and do it, you're gonna pay the price. It wasn't that she didn't let us live a life, but there was a price to be paid.
Yeah, and there was certainly there were no free passes, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
And now that you're a parent, I don't know how you feel about it. It's so easy to just give the free pass, because who wants the battle, right? So with time, you appreciate those things a little bit more.
Well, certainly you know now that she wasn't looking for battles. It wasn't like she was that type of person, but she wasn't going to let any deed, certainly on a bad deed, go unnoticed and without, specifically, it was really mostly around us drinking, because she had come from a family of drunks, her father, her brother, and on both sides of our family, there were a lot of drinkers. So she let us know really from the beginning that it was our destiny, our potential destiny to have a drinking problem, and thankfully, those words stayed in our head, and both of us, before we ever had a family or were maybe did you get sober right after you got married?
Yeah.
Or right before?
No, right after. It's funny, because when after we were married a few years and we were living in Rye, some of the wives around Rye would ask my wife, "How did you do it? How did you get him to?" And she's like, "How did I do it? If I told him to do it, he wouldn't have done it." Yeah. So no, it's a true point, and it's in the family tree, but we've both been able to see ourselves to the other side of it. So.
Oh yeah, and for both of us, there's no other way. We wouldn't be sitting here today alive if we didn't. So. I keep
seeing comments from her sister Maura here on the stroll about, maybe we shouldn't be talking about these things on Instagram Live, but I'm bearing my soul here, Billy.
Yeah.
To your millions of followers.
Yeah. And Siobhan's taking notes too. Yeah.
That's funny.
Here's a question: how was it growing up playing golf or how was it? How was it growing up learning to play golf at Wingfoot? I'll let you answer, then I'll answer.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it happens. It was a terrific experience, and one that I would say that you realized more fully than I did. And I wasn't particularly interested in golf when I was young. I didn't I knew I had something. I knew Winged Foot was special. It wasn't that, but I wasn't very good. Um, every other sport came naturally to me, and our father. You were a couple years older, and he said to me when I went to golf, I did everything lefty, and he said, "Well, your brother's righty. I'm not buying two sets of clubs, and you've got a nice baseball swing, so we're not going to mess with that." And so I had to, I had to learn it right-handed, and that's not an excuse, but it didn't come naturally. So my good friend Terry Toll, who's a friend of both of ours and a friend to the brotherhood of B.Draddy, and I in the youth program, they had a very vibrant youth program. He and we'd all go play golf after the clinic, and he and I would play as many holes as it took for the snack bar to open. So if it was close to 11 o'clock, we'd play 2 holes. If we had to go a little longer, we'd play a little bit longer. So I'd probably say I'm the only youth golfer at Winged Foot who could say he got better at basketball than golf while he was in the golf program there, because there was a side court by the pool. That's where I would spend my time, where all Billy and the other junior golfers would spend it at the range. But the only other thing I'd say about that, Billy, is with you is, and I noticed this even as a young, you loved every part of it. You loved the clinics, you loved the assistant pros, you loved the game, you loved the camaraderie. When it came time to caddy, you were right in the middle of it. You were one of the better caddies there because you paid attention to it. You loved it. You loved the experience. And I was a little bit more an introvert. I'm not introverted, but I'm probably a little more shy till I get to know people. So I'd show up at the caddy yard with a book, and I'd kind of try and hide, especially if it was a good book, because I didn't want to get out too soon. Like, I'm the only guy who was rooting to not get out. But I'd say that the experience was great. I think probably more so today than there's probably the youth in the places embraced even more. I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I was always a little fearful when I left the pool to go down to the range or onto the golf course. There was a lot of respect, and you walked lightly. There wasn't a lot of room for messing around.
Well, Andy from the Fried Egg asked me that. Was it better then or now for kids? And I said, it's in the overall scheme of things, it's better. They've moved with the times. But yeah. I said, I don't think my kids feel any more comfortable, or my wife feels like it's any more for women than we did and our mom felt. Like, I think it is always a little bit. It's kind of our kids have the same feeling we did, that they're walking a little bit on eggshells. But what I think that's good, because golf is definitely a game that there's customs to it, and I always felt like we learned the game the right way. I mean, when we grew up, we had to wear pants there every day. I can't even get my kids to wear pants to school when it's freezing out.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the middle of summer, we'd have to wear pants every day. And it taught you those things in life about respect, and certainly about the game of golf with the rich history there. I mean, I fell in love with tournament golf, being a volunteer there, at the 1980 U.S. Senior Open was the first time, and then we had the U.S. Open in '84, and I absolutely fell in love with tournament golf because of that, where it's kind of like the carnival rolling into town, where you get there early in the morning and there aren't that many spectators, and you can see the pros getting ready to go out. It's definitely, it's got a real great aura to it.
Absolutely. And back then there was just such greater access, that we basically had the free reign of the place during those tournaments. You were, yeah. I think our sister Mary Pat was like the standard bearer for Greg Norman in the '84 Open, and she had no business doing that, but that was the job she got. So it's a wonderful place, and it now every time I drive onto that property, it's like, to me, it's hallowed ground. It's almost like going to church, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's instead of going to church.
And what did you? Yeah. And what's your memory of like some of the characters that worked there?
Well, I mean, for me and probably for you, I don't know. There's three that come to mind for me, and first is Pat Collins, because he was the guy who greeted the golfers and the caddy. He's the caddy master, longtime caddy master, resident of the area, big personality, great New York accent, and loud, and for us, he happened to be very good friends with our family. So,
well, he went to grammar school with our Aunt Jean.
That's right. Yeah. And so, I mean, Pat was a character, and I think in a lot of ways, and people have told me that who've come and played there, he made it as special as anybody, because he made everybody who was on the property feel welcome and let them know that this was a special place and that they should feel grateful that they're there, So,
yeah.
So he was that. Mo was just, he was
Mo
in the
Delaporte.
Yeah, in the bag room, and he had a ton of personality, and he was cranky at times, but he just, over time, you really develop a special relationship with him. And then the third for me was the guy in the kitchen. Like I told you about the snack bar, so I was frequenting the snack bar. Mitch was the snack bar chef, and he was an incredible chef. He was crusty. He'd yell at you, and but somewhere deep down, he liked the fact that we were coming. So over time, my father, I just described my dad at the same time as I described Mitch. So I started calling Dad Mitch later in life.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I'm doing a little therapy for you. Every guy that you said you liked are guys that yelled at you.
That's true. Yeah. I love my dad.
I thought one of the guys that I always think of from those years is Tom Neoporti.
Oh yeah.
Tom Neoporti was the head professional there from 76. I think Claude Harmon left 76 until probably 06, I would say. Or maybe right after 06. Yeah, probably right after the Open. And he was, I think it was something like, it wasn't until maybe 2005 or something like that he won the PGA Father of the Year. And this is a guy that had 9 kids, and he literally left the house every day from Long Island, drove over to Westchester County into Mamaroneck, and was just, I think it's actually giving him a bad name to say that he was like a priest, because he was even nicer than priests are. And he never had a bad thing to say about anybody. He had the ultimate respect of the membership. He treated everyone exactly the same way. No one really any different than anybody else. And he was just such a gentleman. All his kids would come and work in the shop, and every single one of them was a great person. And even to this day, a lot of them are still in the golf business, and I see them from time to time. And it's like you never stop seeing them. Joey Neoporti and John Neoporti and Jay. They were just, and the girls, Penny and Joe, they were all just incredibly nice people. And the funny thing was, and I don't think I even knew this until we were a little bit older, but in 1959, when they had the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, my dad actually caddied for Tom.
Yeah.
In the Open. And they played the practice rounds together with Billy Casper, who ended up winning it. And for then Tom to become, the head professional when my dad had become a member, that was pretty cool. And wasn't it one of his nieces, or no, his sister-in-law was one of Mom's roommates in college, too.
That's right. Yeah. And Mom worked for Tom, right? For a while. Our mother worked for Tom Neoporti.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I forget where, but maybe it was before he got to Winged Foot. Yeah, I guess that, Tom, for me, Tom Neoporti almost goes without saying, because a lot of people probably know and have heard about him. And for me, being the bad golfer I was when we were growing up, I probably tried to stay away from him more than be in his company. But he was that. He was a gracious man and a classy guy, and he did everything the right way, from the way he raised his family to the way he carried himself at the club, to the way he treated the members, to the way he treated the staff. He's the model for a club professional. And
yeah,
is he still the last?
None of it seemed like he was. There are guys that that call everybody sir, and and it was all very natural to him. You didn't feel like he was, it didn't feel like service to him. It was just Tom Neoporty being Tom Neoporty.
Wasn't he so he was an All-American at Ohio State before Jack Nicklaus, right?
Before Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah,
correct,
and he won. He was the last club pro to win on tour, I believe.
Yeah, the Bob Hope Desert Classic.
Yeah, and I've heard said by a number of professionals that there's no doubt he would have been a great touring pro. It wasn't that he didn't have the game. It was that he really was a family man.
And 9 kids.
Yeah, and 9 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I caddied for him a number of times, and he used to play those McGregor blades, which you could literally use a 3-iron, an old McGregor 3-iron as a butter knife.
Yeah.
It was so thin on the top edge of it, and he just hit it. He hit it so pure, and he had great tempo, and was just an awesome guy. And the funny thing is, the year that we started B.Draddy, or maybe it was the second year we were entering the second year with B.Draddy, and young John had made the U.S. Open at Oakmont, and we had sent him some product to wear for the Open, and he was quite a player, John, and a big guy too.
Do you know the story with Dad and the it was the father-son. It was the father-son at Wingfoot.
It was adult child.
Adult child. Sorry.
Yes.
I played in the father-son with him once, and I'm still in therapy for it. But I think there was an alternate shot portion, and my father and I almost came to blows on the course. But
just to put it into reference for people that don't know, when I talk about our father to people that have never met him, and I talk about his temper, the only person I can ever use to describe his temper is Mike Ditka.
Yeah.
Like where it's just literally a time bomb waiting to go off.
But he would get it out. That's the thing. He would, he was in the moment for the next shot. So me, I would hold it up. I would hold it in for way too long, and then it would come out in the wrong way. But yeah, the parent-child, my father got paired with young John Neoporty, and I believe they won it. And
they did.
I think John contributed 90% of the shots, but that was not the way the story was told in our household. No, it
was told like if you guys were half as good as John, we'd be winning the father-sons too.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me see what else we got here. Okay. Oh, actually, it's funny that Lisa Farron from the Creek Club, she actually asked 8 minutes ago before we went into the Mr. Neoporty story. Was Mr. Neoporty there when y'all grew up? Any good stories? So we got right into that.
Nice.
Yeah. From Pedro Burke here, your mom is the best. Who hit more dingers at Disbro, you or I?
Definitely me.
Yeah, I think that was you.
I was left-handed, and there was a short porch in right field, but I would say Billy was a great pitcher and a great catcher, a pretty good hitter, but not a power hitter. So I was a swing for the fences, Darryl Strawberry uppercut swing. I had everything Darryl did except I couldn't make contact with a curveball. And I'm just kidding. I was not Darryl Strawberry, but it was a short porch at Disbro, so I think I got a few more out.
I think you're probably right too.
One of my favorite Billy Draddy stories that I really want to tell happened at Disbro, and just to get a sense of Billy, So Billy and I in life only played on the same team twice, and once when I was 13 and he was 15. The Falcon train, as we like to call it. You know, all the best guys in Rye growing up played for the Falcons. Sonny Bob Dunn was our coach, and my father was the assistant coach / disciplinarian. And we're practicing when I'm 13. And for those of you who play baseball, we had a jugs machine that you would use for hitting batting practice. But one day they decided to use it to teach us to play 5 fly balls in the outfield. So I'm back with the coaches at home plate, and they are just launching these towering fly balls into deep right center, and Billy's out there. And the other thing is, I think they were teaching us how to play the sun. And Billy, like, we launch one and he never sees it, and this thing sky high, and it comes out of the air and hits him square on the head, and you could hear it from home plate, like it was solid wood, and the thing shot back up in the air, and I thought he was dead. And all you could hear from center is, "I'm fine. It didn't even hurt." And that's when the blessing of having a big, thick Irish head came to protect Billy.
Oh yeah, I mean, through all the contact sports that we've played, I actually never remember. I mean, I don't ever think I ever had a concussion. I mean, I certainly don't ever remember feeling sick to my stomach, or or feeling like I stopped, remembering part of a game or something like that.
Well, I've had my fair share of concussions. So, but generally you don't remember, Bill. So maybe you don't remember not remembering. Yeah, well, I only remember you making one big hit in football, and it was when you were at Canterbury. I mean, my father, it's probably his proudest moment in your football life, is what I'd say, because you were mainly a quarterback, and a good one at that, until a couple injuries. But when Billy did his 5th year of high school, that's why I made the 5-year English joke earlier that maybe didn't get realized. His 5th year of high school at Canterbury, you had to play a sport, and he hadn't played football in a few years, and he played cornerback, not quarterback, cornerback. And I don't forget who they were playing. You can tell me who, maybe Trinity Pauling, but they had a huge running back and a really talented kid. And I was not at the game, but my father described it, and he threw I think it was a screen out into the flat, and Billy just heads full speed ahead, took the kid on, and literally drilled him and knocked him out of the game. And that was, maybe you did have a concussion that day. I would be surprised if you didn't. But
no, that was one of those hits where you don't even feel it. It's like hitting a baseball, and you don't even feel it.
It's true, the biggest hits.
The truth to that story is that the play before, or maybe the series of downs before, they had run the same play, and the guy beat me for a touchtouging. Like he made a good move on me, beat me for a touchdown, and as he was running off the field, he's pointing at me. He's running by me and pointing at me and kind of jawing at me that he just beat me. And so I was I was licking my chops. Till he got the ball again. I was so ready. And I think that's probably what Dad liked the most about it, was that, a negative into a positive.
It also demonstrates your competitiveness, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a question here. Have I told the story about your first high school varsity football game? I think I don't know who asked the question, but I think it was more your first football game than your varsity football game. I remember I had just finished practice, and so Greg, when he was in middle school, 7th and 8th grade, he was so skinny that when he turned sideways, you'd lose track of him. But at the same time, was incredibly, incredibly tall. So he was by far the tallest person in the grade, but he was really skinny. And we would joke around all the time about how skinny he was. And for a while, there wasn't necessarily the coordination that this great athlete had. I think when Dad came back from your first Little League practice, he said to my mom, listen, we've got two sons. One of them, Billy, seems to be a good athlete. He enjoys it. Greg probably just doesn't have it. I'm a former athlete, and he just doesn't have it. And the truth is that you, like I said, you were really skinny, and it took a little bit later till you got some muscle on that frame, till you had your coordination. But once the coordination came, I remember watching your first football game, and you took a pitch. You took a pitch to the outside, and you caught the ball, and no sooner did you catch it that you were literally by everybody, and it was like I was so literally blown away that it brought me to tears at that age, and it was incredible, and I think that's the story that they were talking about.
Yeah.
But
well, thank you.
There was, yeah, you got it.
I remember my mom tells a story of, if you remember, my two 8th grade football coaches were Dennis Rice and Mr. Zegras, John Zegras. And one was a hockey coach, one was a wrestling coach. And the first day of football, I'd never played. I mean, I'd played football with my friends, but I'd never had pads on before. So I was probably 6'2" at that point, 6'1", and 140 pounds, maybe. And
we had to tape the pads on you.
And so the coach Rice said to me, "What position do you play?" And I said, "Tailback and middle linebacker." And he goes, "There's no way I'm putting this kid at middle linebacker." So he wouldn't put me at linebacker because he thought he was gonna hurt me. So so he put me at like defense. He's like, "Just go play defensive end." And he said, like, I made every I just ran, like, I didn't care about contact. Like, that's how you know if you have a football player, whether they shy from contact or not. He said, like, I made every tackle. And then I said to him at the end of practice, "Can I play middle linebacker now?" And he said, "Absolutely." Yeah.
Well, Greg ended up leading the state in tackles his senior year, and you had led the state in receptions your junior year. And then the football coach at Rye, he didn't throw to you for the rest of your senior season.
Yeah. We don't want to bring that up, but yeah.
Well, Craig Bunizet, a guy that we grew up with, he wants to know when I'm coming out with the Paul Wiedemeyer collection.
God, I saw that.
To tell that story, it is really hard to believe, when you think about how strict people are about dressing at clubs and everything like that today. But the guy that ran the couple really that ran the junior golf program at Wingfoot were a lovely couple named Paul Wiedemeyer, and I don't remember what Mrs. Wiedemeyer's name was, but
Lovey?
Literally, yeah, he drove a black Cadillac.
Helen, right?
And
Helen?
Yeah, Helen, that's right. Yeah. Helen Wiedemeyer, exactly. He drove a black Cadillac, and he would wear, sometimes he would wear a collared shirt, sometimes he wouldn't, but all the time they were some version of mesh.
Yeah.
Where half the shirt would be a solid jersey, the other half would be mesh. And Mrs. Wiedemeyer looked like Phyllis Diller. And most people are probably too young to know who Phyllis Diller is, but you can Google her. And she literally looked like Phyllis Diller. And the two of them together were like, it's almost a comedy routine, And they would take the whole junior golf team practically in their Cadillac and drive around to the clubs in the Met section. And they were two of the kindest people that you'd ever meet, And he would always be smoking those Moore cigarettes, which were like the
brown
cigars.
Yeah.
And there's not a chance in the world that could exist in today's world. First of all, if the parents would let take all 6 kids, 3 kids in the front seat, 4 kids in the back, take them around the county like that. But they really, they didn't have any kids themselves, and they really were the kindest people going,
Yeah, absolutely. They were. I mean, you could make a sitcom about them today if you wanted to. They were so.
Oh
yeah. Yeah.
No, they're right at it. I mean, it's almost like they're out of central casting from like Caddyshack or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could still picture the amount of lipstick that Mrs. Wiedemeyer would wear, and like this like gross pink. But Bugs said that Weezer and the Leon brothers used to steal the cigarettes from him.
Yeah, amongst other things too, I'm probably sure.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple more minutes. I'll throw a couple more questions in there. Let me see. Who was smarter? Greg was definitely smarter.
Book smarter. Yeah. You once told me that I said, "What books have you been reading, Bill?" And you said, "Oh, reading is so last century." This was like in 2001 or 2002.
See, now can you see that question?
Yeah.
I guess I was supposed to click on these questions and everyone could see the question as we're answering it. So, greatest sports memory as brothers growing up. I know what one that we saw together. I know what it was. Let's see if you have the same one. One
that we saw together live?
Yeah.
Maybe the Giants NFC Championship game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the 49-3 game.
Joe Montana got knocked out?
Yeah. Absolutely. I was going to say that championship to me because I was at that year I was 16 years old. It was the first New York-based championship that I could really remember and have, spent it with you and be at Giant Stadium, which was a real treasure. But I think you should tell the story of the Yankees in 77 or 78 because that was a pretty cool one too.
Okay. So what Greg was talking about was the Giants. It was the NFC Championship game, right?
Yeah.
And it was San Fran was coming in as probably the team of the decade, and it was on our turf, and literally within the first, it was definitely in the first quarter. Jim Burt, who was part of their great defense, he'd come right through the line and knocked Joe Montana right out of the game. And after that, the game was over.
Yep. The only I was going to say the only professional sports jersey I've ever owned was Lawrence Taylor. I just have been never a jersey guy, but he was that good, right?
Yeah, he was fun to watch.
Yeah,
for sure. So the story that Greg's referencing is with the Yankees. So it's 1977, and the Yankees are in the World Series against the Dodgers. And this is another thing that wouldn't happen today. So I went to the game with my dad's uncle, Greg's namesake, Greg Draddy, who had his own women's clothing line at the time, and was a great guy. And he took our two cousins, Jimmy and Kimberly Locke. And so we had 4 seats. 2 of them were like literally dead behind center plate, second or third row. And the other 2 seats were out in right field. So Greg and Kim sat behind home plate, and me and Jimmy sat out in right field. Now, this is 1977. I'm 9 years old, so as old as my youngest, Finn, and Jimmy's 10. And we're out in right field at Yankee Stadium in the 70s. So that's definitely what wouldn't happen today. So we're sitting out there, and we watched the whole game. It's an incredible game, and the Yankees win. And at this point, they don't win the series, but they win to go back. I think they have a 3-1 lead, and they're going back to LA to hopefully to clinch. But so it looked like they weren't going to finish the series at Yankee Stadium. So with that, after the game, after the Yankees win, everyone rushes the field. You know, like what was that was the first time I ever saw that happen. Maybe it happened in every city, but it felt like it kind of started in New York City where people would rush the field. So we were supposed to go and meet Greg behind home plate right after the game. So we're walking from right field towards home plate after the game, and Jimmy says, "Well, why don't we go on the field? We can cut across the field to get to Greg and Kimberly." Which, knowing Jimmy, was, you know, he always had an angle. And so we hop on the field, and no sooner am I on the field, I take maybe 2 steps, and a cop grabs me. And he grabs me really to protect me more than anything else. And and he took me out off the field through the bowels of Yankee Stadium, out to the police truck. You know, there used to be a police truck that sat right outside of the players' entrance. And I was standing on top of the police truck with him, looking for Greg and Jimmy and Kimberly. And they eventually, the guy that had been driving us into the event, he went to the police truck and he got me. And the tongue lashing that we got on the way home, and then the tongue lashing we then received, you know, once we got back home, because there were no cell phones, so no one, you know, every time someone heard it, it was the first time hearing it. So when both Uncle Jim and Dad heard that story, it was for the first time. So yeah, that was definitely an experience you're happy you came out on the other side of.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
I know you're going to wrap us up soon. Can I give my comments about you and B.Draddy and your? And,
oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, I just, you know, I'm pretty amazed at what you've been able to accomplish. Not because I ever doubted that you were in the right industry, but what I am is I'm in awe of what you do on a daily basis, and I say it because you've really never ever wanted anything else but to be in the business you're in. Like you didn't always know it was going to be golf, but you have the courage of your convictions because you had a vision, and lots of people have visions, but you made it a reality, and so. You know, I get asked all the time, are you jealous? Are you jealous of your brother? You know, he's got this golf brand and you're toiling away in the insurance industry. And I laugh because like jealousy's never, I don't think you or I have ever been jealous of one another for anything that we've ever done.
Oh,
you know, like
I would say the same thing about your sports success.
Yeah, no, that never occurred to me. You know, were we competitive? Yeah. So no, never jealous. You know, the only thing I'm envious of is the fact that, you know, what you do every day is your passion, right? So,
yeah.
You wake up, it's not work, you know, it's probably a bit of a double-edged, you know, it's a blessing and a curse because like you said, it's an obsession. So you can't always take yourself away from it. But, you know, it's funny, it works into every area of my life. So it's like, I'm the beneficiary. You know, first time I went out to a meeting, and when I moved to North Carolina, and I was like nervous to meet this treasurer of this publicly traded company, and I walk into the room, and I have all these icebreakers ready, and how I'm going to impress this guy, and he goes, "Hey, are you any relation to B.Draddy?" And I just settled in. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a great meeting. You know, we're going to talk about golf clothing." So, you know, I talk to people all over the country that recognize the brand and you know, and know it, like people who love it, they love it for the authenticity. And I think you can't mask authenticity, and that's what you bring to it. And that's not, you know, that's a lot of people have things that they're authentic about, but they don't always demonstrate it everywhere they go. So it takes that, but it also takes courage to move forward with it. And so I stand here, or sit here, I'm sitting envious of that. Not envious, but really proud. Proud is a better word. Just, you know, I want to support it in any way I can. I was gonna pipe in on that first call and with Jack and say, so was Jack the younger brother you always wish you had? But it was tongue in cheek because, like if I'm jealous of anybody, it's Jack. He's funny, because when after we were married a few years and we were living in Rye, some of the wives around Rye would ask my wife, "How did you do it? How did you get him to?" And she's like, "How did I do it? If I told him to do it, he wouldn't have done it." Yeah. So no, it's a true point, and it's in the family tree, but we've both been able to see ourselves to the other side of it. So.
Oh yeah, and for both of us, there's no other way. We wouldn't be sitting here today alive if we didn't. So.
I keep seeing comments from her sister Maura here on the stroll about maybe we shouldn't be talking about these things on Instagram Live, but I'm bearing my soul here, Billy.
Yeah.
To your millions of followers.
Yeah. And Siobhan's taking notes too. Yeah.
That's funny.
Here's a question: how was it growing up playing golf or how was it? How was it growing up learning to play golf at Wingfoot? I'll let you answer, then I'll answer.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it happens. It was a terrific experience, and one that I would say that you realized more fully than I did, and I wasn't particularly interested in golf when I was young. I knew I had something. I knew Wingfoot was special. It wasn't that, but I wasn't very good. Every other sport came naturally to me, and our father. You were a couple years older, and he said to me when I went to golf, I did everything lefty, and he said, "Well, your brother's righty. I'm not buying 2 sets of clubs, and you've got a nice baseball swing, so we're not going to mess with that." And so I had to learn it right-handed, and that's not an excuse, but it didn't come naturally. So my good friend Terry Toll, who's a friend of both of ours and a friend to the brotherhood of B.Draddy, and I in the youth program, we had a very vibrant youth program. He and we'd all go play golf after the clinic, and he and I would play as many holes as it took for the snack bar to open. So if it was close to 11 o'clock, we'd play 2 holes. If we had to go a little longer, we'd play a little bit longer. So I'd probably say I'm the only youth golfer at Wingfoot who could say he got better at basketball than golf while he was in the golf program there, because there was a side court by the pool. That's where I would spend my time, where all Billy and the other junior golfers would spend it at the range. But the only other thing I'd say about that, Billy, is with you is, and I noticed this even as a young, you loved every part of it. You loved the clinics, you loved the assistant pros, you loved the game, you loved the camaraderie. When it came time to caddy, you were right in the middle of it. You were one of the better caddies there because you paid attention to it. You loved it. You loved the experience. And I was a little bit more an introvert. I'm not introverted, but I'm probably a little more shy till I get to know people. So I'd show up at the caddy yard with a book, and I'd kind of try and hide, especially if it was a good book, because I didn't want to get out too soon. Like, I'm the only guy who was rooting to not get out. But I'd say that the experience was great. I think probably more so today than there's probably the youth in the place is embraced even more. I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I was always a little fearful when I left the pool to go down to the range or onto the golf course. There was a lot of respect, and you walked lightly. There wasn't a lot of room for messing around.
Well, Andy from the Fried Egg asked me that, was it better then or now for kids? And I said, it's in the overall scheme of things, it's better. They've moved with the times. But
Yeah.
I said, I don't think my kids feel any more comfortable, or my wife feels like it's any more for women than we did and our mom felt. Like, I think it is always a little bit. It's kind of our kids have the same feeling we did, that they're walking a little bit on eggshells. But what I think that's good, because golf is definitely a game that there's customs to it, and I always felt like we learned the game the right way. I mean, when we grew up, we had to wear pants there every day. I can't even get my kids to wear pants to school when it's freezing